central bank, when you talk about awareness, is this something that you think the government or the banks should be discussing or raising awareness, public awareness, and investors' awareness about this climate risk?
Yes. I'm not entirely familiar with the resort that you are talking about or referring to, but in general, I would expect, investors to think about these kind of locations and the risk that they are being impacted by a hurricane or a storm. I would be surprised if awareness for this type of risk would still be needed in Sint Maarten. I guess it would be very much on the front and center for them to think about these things. And I think the awareness part is more important for Curaçao because of the slow-moving character of the risks. So, and also you could argue in Curaçao, like if the investment horizon of a bank is typically 10 to 15 years, but the infrastructure or the capital is there for maybe 50 years. And so the incentives are not aligned with the time horizon they need to think about. They think 10 years, 15 years, whereas the risk is maybe a 40 years risk. And then it's more difficult to get that into the sort of awareness and the system of investors to think about what it would mean. Whereas for the example that you highlight in Sint Maarten, I would expect that banks and finances of these kind of developments will definitely take a close look of how their building code is being done and what is the impact going to be. Like if they are certain that the building code they use is sort of Hurricane 5 proof or only with limited damage, there's a quick recovery possible, then it can still be a sensible and rational investment. But they need to think about it.
The European Central Bank has held interest rates and said it expects inflation to decline over the course of 2024. The Federal Reserve left interest rates unchanged at its final policy meeting of 2023, while signaling that 2024 could bring significant rate cuts. Can you help us to understand how this, if any, translates to the positive or non-positive activities of the Central Bank of St. Maarten or Curaçao and St. Maarten?
Yes, of course. And so I talked about this also a little bit in the presentation, but what we anticipate is also this gradual decline in interest rates of the major central banks, given that inflation is moderating in our projections. So if next year there is indeed room for the Federal Reserve to gradually decline its interest rate, they anticipated now, I believe, 3 cuts for 2024, and the same would happen for the ECB, that they will keep their interest rate unchanged at 4.5% or maybe even have room to do a rate cut, then you would expect an economic development as we indicated in our projection. Obviously, the risk is that inflation is not going to be moderating as expected by the major central banks. And if, for example, in the United States, there would be a second round effect, there would be a long price spiral, as we call it, and there's no room for interest rate to moderate, then it probably would mean that inflation is still high. That would mean that purchasing power of consumers is lower. That would mean a lower economic growth. And so that would also translate into a lower economic growth in Sint Maarten than we currently expect to be the case.
Earlier on, you spoke of the climate change issue and how this will have to be at least be discussed in detail locally, and the impact this might have on St. Maarten versus that of Curaçao. Is it your intention as central bank to at least organize a few public sessions to ensure that people have a better understanding as to how this can adversely impact the country?
Yes, that is certainly something that is on our agenda. I mean, we recently contributed to an event in the context of the Financial Literacy Month, organized amongst others by the Minister of Finance. And we discussed there in a smaller group also the implication and the impact of climate change, and it could have the risk for Sint Maarten. But it is also something, I mean, I shouldn't overpromise. I mean, it's not that we have a lot of capacity to do this kind of work, but we are committed to at least spend some resources on this, and I think it would also be useful then next year again to organize an event, for example, on the insurance risks for individuals or for the country, as Ms. Hoffman was referring to. And so that is certainly something that we will continue to do.
My final question, can you provide us an update on the Caribbean Gilder?
Yes, certainly. So the introduction date is 31st of March 2025. So all efforts are now being dedicated to make sure that the systems are being adjusted. So we see that the banks are making good progress on the preparations. On our side, we make good progress on the preparations regarding the launch. But for now, all preparations are well ahead, and we continue to provide information to the public on this matter.
At RBC, we know the roles you have to play can change quickly. Whether it's a homeowner, a new parent, today's head chef, or the family chauffeur. Whatever life asks you to be. RBC is a bank for all of you. Win Christmas cash with a no-fee loan from RBC.
Are you Asset V insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? Asset V is cardless. Request your My Asset V account today and enter the virtual office of Asset V. Go to assetv.sx and sign up now.
Asset V, yeah. Your social and health insurances.
Tiat, MP Heliger Martin, your answer was very vague. Tiat's answer was very vague. I asked for the commitment letter. I need a copy of it. The letter from Royal Caribbean is something that they have entrusted in the Council of Ministers. If the MP is referring to the official letter sent from Royal Caribbean to the government of St. Martin, that cannot be shared until it is handled by COM, which is expected to be handled tomorrow. We would, out of respect for Royal Caribbean, such as an important strategic partner to the country and to the port, we would have to consult with them about the sharing of this document with Parliament. Once the above is done, then it could be sent to Parliament. So once it is handled completely in COM, it can be sent to Parliament. I don't understand the cap. Is it 550, 400? According to the MP. To you, Mr. Chairman, it was mentioned in the minister's press release that 10% of the cap will be kept as reserve for future growth while remaining with the parameters of the moratorium. I have a concern. RCG, 160 cars, they are the biggest spenders. Why don't we increase this? Talks are continuous with Royal Caribbean. The trend has been bigger and better ships. So while we look at less cars, but it brought a larger number of Royal Caribbean passengers and for a very long time, and also a much higher spending passenger than the smaller ship, as new ships may tend to come with a larger average of spending power. This can be seen in the larger ships about to be released, named Icon of the Sea, that will be calling to St. Martin February 2024. Although the call, MP Rolando Bryson, your queries, clarification, although the calls for RCG are less, we have more passengers coming. Yes, larger ships from Royal Caribbean are coming to St. Martin, resulting in more passengers than in many years of Royal as well. This could indicate the level of confidence they have in our destination, and we will continue to build these efforts. Questions are posed earlier regarding Disney Cruise Call. Why have they been non-existent? Disney has a strategic agreement with Totola for almost 10 years now. So it is indeed challenging to get Disney here when they went into such agreement years ago. Long before the time of this government, we are actively discussing and exploring avenues for more cars to St. Martin from this, be it Disney and other cruise lines. That is all of the clarifications we had for the Ministry of TI.
I believe that the single clarification was, what does a 27 refer to? Minister ECYS, is to 20, I'm sorry. The 27,000 euros is 1,000. 27 is 27,000 euros. And I'm sorry, I don't recall what the second clarification point was. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If the minister through you can please repeat the first answer to the first question I posed. The state of education, when we would be able to receive it. I didn't quite get the answer. The first answer. Just to repeat.
The first question was, when will Minister ECYS present the State of Education report for the 2022 Parliament as required by law? Answer, currently the ministry is busy reviewing the draft report, and once approved, Minister will present it to Parliament.
St. Martin has improved in a lot of places when it comes to preparedness. However, we have seen that we are not storm ready in the last few years. And when I say storm ready is we have no storm water pumps. So every time we're scrambling when the rain's coming or when the storms are coming, a lot of equipment is not working. People don't want to go the extra mile because government is a bad pay, and then government tell them, oh, you owe taxes, so nobody really wants to engage and do these things. And, considering climate change and the unpredictable patterns we have seen with hurricanes, I mean, look at the high winds we have now. Not before Christmas, yes. We do have winds, but not 35 knots an hour. This is really a whole different thing. You see what just happened, in Florida. Mm-hmm. Florida is being beaten. Yeah. Over the weekend, they were beaten with winds and rain. Something very uncommon. But again, the patterns have changed. Climate change is a reality for us. And we need to understand how we dealing with it. And I don't know if the experience that we had over the past 10 years has been properly put into the books of preparedness and say, hey, these are the things we got to watch, these are the things we got to do. I can recall when I was there, I was working with VNGE. That's a group from the Netherlands, the gemeentes, and they were doing a good job. I will not say that, oh, nothing was done. No, they were doing a good job, but I can't give you the end result because I wasn't there anymore. But I do believe that there's a lot more to be done when it comes to stormwater management, green energy, and the infrastructure in general. I think
changing the building code, MP.
They have done some of that. They have changed some of the building codes, especially for the steel structure buildings
Right.
that gave away with Irma. They looked at that and they said, okay, we need to change it, and that has been done to my knowledge.
And they're very strict in Bermuda.
Yeah,
Bermuda has a very strict building code.
yeah. Well, Bermuda always gets a hurricane.
always
They
get
don't duck every
Yeah.
season. They in that part there. When she swings up the eastern border of America, But again, green energy, I think, is something that resilience calls for. While we are so dependent right now on fossil fuel, we need to seriously start looking at solar energy, wind energy, and even geothermal energy if so desired. But I'll touch that if time permits. I'll touch it a little later. But climate change, this is something I am most scared of. And the reason for that is because we live with water all around us. And one of the most predictable things with climate change is the rise of the water level. The two, North and South Pole, they are melting.
And the water
That
is rising.
is going to make the water rise. And when that water rises, St. Martin is going to flood in certain locations. If we like that or not, I think Nature Foundation did a study on this. 2050, 2080, basically Simpson Bay is gone, part of Lowlands is gone, part of town might be gone. And if we don't do nothing about it, because living below sea level
right.
is nothing new for the Dutch. Half of their country is underwater, under sea level.
Do you remember after, which hurricane was it? I think after the passing of hurricane, that dangerous hurricane in New Orleans, what was it again? Katrina.
Katrina, yeah.
You know they brought in experts from the Netherlands to build
for the dikes. Yes,
the dikes to protect
But
them.
this is something that we have to start thinking on.
Sure.
Now, the thing is, the first thing you're going to hear people say, okay, but what does that mean for the country? Because we are tourism. Well, 50 years from now, you might not be tourism because we might have winter here. We don't know. We really don't know with climate change what's really going to happen with the predictions of weather.
St. Kitts had hail a few months ago.
I know, I saw it. And Sabre has it quite often because of the height.
Yeah.
We are not that high, so we mightn't get it so easy. But what I'm trying to say is climate change is something that we have to remember is a big problem for us. So besides the rising water and fixing of the building codes, coastal erosion is something that we are going to suffer. The waves are going to get bigger, so when they slam in here, they're going to take the sand and go with everything. And then we have a lot of bleaching of corals. Why? Because we still have a lot of sewage that is leaked into the sea on a daily basis, into the lagoon, into the ponds, because not everybody is connected. Now, I'm not going to sit down here and say, oh, government ain't doing their job. Government ain't doing their job good enough.
Your social and health insurance is your social and health insurance.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
Your social and health insurance.
At At RBC, we know the roles you have to play can change quickly. Whether it's a homeowner, a new parent, today's head chef, or the family chauffeur. Whatever life asks you to be. RBC is a bank for all of you. Win Christmas cash with a no-fee loan from RBC.
We are not afraid because we know that we are standing on the right side of international law. We are standing on the right side of history. We are standing on the right side of facts. We are standing on the side of the truth. And we stand with that confidence from our partners. But we are also a people, our army may be small. But trust me, we are fully dedicated. We are committed to the defense of all our territory, our sovereignty. And we will do everything it takes to ensure that what belongs to Guyana continues to be ours.
Have you spoken with the White House or anyone with the U.S. government recently? And what did they tell you?
Well, I have spoken, of course, to we are in constant communication with Southcom, with the White House, with Secretary Blinken, National Security Advisor. So there's a lot of conversation that is going on between the U.S. and Guyana. The U.S. has issued, Secretary Blinken has issued a very strong statement. That is, the borders as established in 1899 must be respected, international law must be respected, and the outcome of the ICJ must be respected. We also have very elaborate and expanded collaboration and cooperation with the Department of Defense. There's a lot of joint training program, joint exercises that is being conducted now. That is being ramped up, and we'll see more and more of this as the days go by.
You are set to meet with Mr. Maduro tomorrow. What are you going to tell him?
Very clearly, Essequibo belongs to Guyana. And very clearly that we are not exiting the ICJ. There is absolutely no negotiations on the issue of Essequibo. That controversy shall be settled at the ICJ, and he must respect the outcome. But there are a lot of things that we have to talk about in terms of living as neighbors, the coexistence, the development of our region, regional energy security, ensuring this region remains peaceful and stable, and importantly, having President Maduro understand that he needs to work in accordance with international law and follow the orders of the ICJ.
Would you be willing even to give up an inch of land in the Essequibo region?
Not a single inch. Essequibo belongs to Guyana. We are not giving up a single inch, not even in thought or idea, much less physically. The controversy Venezuela raised is before the ICJ, and we will abide with the outcome of the ICJ. We are confident of what is ours, and we are going to abide by the ICJ as they determine the merit of the case.
If we look at this from a global perspective, we've seen with Russia, right? What started with potentially a territorial dispute with Ukraine. At least Vladimir Putin told the world that, right? That was part of the reason why they invaded. We see China encroaching on Taiwan. Do you think Mr. Maduro is seeing these other world leaders and saying maybe now it's his time to seize this land?
That is why here in the Western Hemisphere, we must never allow this. We must never allow even any leader within the Western Hemisphere to entertain the thought that they can ever do something like this. That is why every single one of us in the Western Hemisphere, we must let Venezuela understand, and we're doing this in no uncertain terms, that we're going to tolerate this type of reckless behavior in the Western Hemisphere. It has no place here. And you know what? President Maduro has been speaking to his population and saying to them that this is an American agenda with an American company, Exxon, and this is imperialism. There is absolutely this is absolute nonsense. Wasn't it imperialism when Exxon was investing in Venezuela? Why wasn't it imperialism then? So our only intention is peace and stability.